You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Hey fam, it's a new month and Black to Business has some news to share with you. We are going on a tour. That's right, we'll be outside this summer and fall all because of you. We've heard what you had to say and we've read what you wanted, and now we are here to deliver. We're bringing back our panel series, Black Men Who Lead, and this year's theme is the DNA of a Black businessman. We're exploring the anatomy of Black men in business and what characteristics lead to a thriving leader in 2023 and beyond. To learn more about where and when, follow us on all social media accounts and fill out the link in the show notes entitled Black Men Who Lead Update List. Now back into the episode. Hey, and welcome back to the Black to Business Podcast. So happy that you are here. Today's episode is actually a solo episode, and I am going to talk all about starting a business as a new and first generation Black entrepreneur. So what that means is you're starting a business for the first time, and or you're the first person in your family to start a business, like your immediate family. And there were so many things that inspired this episode. And one of the things I spoke about in my year in review of 2022 is that I wanted to do more solo episodes this year because I've been doing business for about 8 years and I know a thing or two about starting a business. And that's my own story. I was a first generation entrepreneur, first time entrepreneur. So today I want to share just from personal experience some of the things that I've learned and also talk about some of the things that we're offering within Black to Business to help those who are in similar situations. So one of the things is the new direction that we're going and some of our latest services. So you'll notice those things if you've taken a look at the website, but if not, you're also going to learn about them in this episode. I want to go a little bit deeper, of course, in this episode about starting as a first generation entrepreneur. And again, some of my own tips and tricks on how to navigate the world of business. So if you are new here, how I like to do things is I like to give an overview of what we're going to be talking about. So first, I'm going to talk about what really inspired this episode, and then some of my tips again on how to navigate the world of business if you're a first generation or first time entrepreneur, and then also leaving with how Black to Business can help you. So first things first is I've shared previously some of my personal journey as an entrepreneur and what really inspired me to start Black to Business. And in that, I've also shared that growing up and in general, I am an avid reader. I love to read. I love to learn. And when you learn new things, it also makes you think about why you see things a certain way. So for me, when I think about why I started Black to Business, I used to think, I didn't want to work for anybody else. And of course, I've shared the story where I've grown up in a small town, Osceola, Georgia, where really there were no entrepreneurs that were Black except the hairstylist and the barbershop owner and the local funeral home owner. But that's all I saw when it came to representation of Black entrepreneurs. But recently I was listening to this online conference, and one of the things that one of the speakers spoke about is when you're starting a business, you want to get clear on your why. Like, what's your reason for starting a business, and get honest about that why. And so most people will say, and I know a lot of people in that conversation said that the reason why they started their businesses is that they didn't want to work for anyone else. And I think that's why a lot of people start businesses, is they don't want to work for anyone else. But then people begin to get deeper. And, one of the ladies talked about she didn't really want to work for men. And so I thought, well, I think about the fact that I wanted to start my business because I didn't want to work for anyone else. That is true. But in addition to that, I think deeper, being able to learn, being able to read, being able to make those mental notes work together to say, okay, what's the deeper reasoning? And when I think about it, for you and for me, it might have been, well, for you, it might be the same. So for me, it was, I wanted freedom. And also another thing that really came up for me when I started to think about it is, I don't know if I always thought like entrepreneurship was a possibility or owning a business was a possibility, but I did think about freedom. And when I saw those entrepreneurs that were Black, they looked free. They looked happy. They looked like they were doing things that they love. And it was like, I want that. I didn't necessarily know what that meant. So for me, it showed up. Freedom is one of the things that showed up for me. But then another thing showed up for me is that I've expressed before, growing up in the South, there were remnants of Jim Crow South. So you're dealing with racism, you're dealing with discrimination. So for me, it was, if I'm going to go and get a job, I want to work for someone who looks like me. And I remember at a young age, I used to not volunteer, but I used to work at my hairstylist with my hairstylist. And I would help her. I would clean up the hair salon. And that's how I was able to get my hair done. Like in exchange for that, she would, do my hair. But that was helping me to come up with my deeper why. So when I give my tips today, it's really understanding your why is one of the tips that I'm going to give for those who are first generation and first time entrepreneurs. Because again, those are the things that are going to keep you going. So that's really what inspired me to talk about this in this episode. And then another thing was some of those struggles that I experienced as a first generation entrepreneur. I went from this small town to DC, did not know anyone. And when I went to DC to go to school, that was the first time I'd ever been to DC. And one of the things that I learned early on is that you have to have a vision for your life and you have to set goals. And there are circumstances that are going to be outside of your control, but what are you going to do when those, what people might think of as obstacles happen? Like, how are you still going to reach your goals? So for me, I dealt with a lot of that as a new entrepreneur. And I'm pretty sure that there were more people who had the same situation. So that was kind of like, sharing my story on what would be valuable to my audience to speak about as a first generation entrepreneur. And how did I kind of like navigate those obstacles that I did face, being that I'm the first person in my family to start a business, being that I didn't have a blueprint as to where to start. So this is what kind of like inspired me to talk about this today. And then in addition to that, I've also shared that recently I participated in an accelerator, and it was a social impact driven accelerator. So we had to go through our business models. It was one of the best experiences that I could have partook in. And what we did was we went through our business models with a fine-tuned comb. They had their staff really help us. They had experts come in and help us and give us advice. And so we looked at what are some of the things that are working and what are some of the things that could kind of pivot. So during the program, of course, a big thing for me was the Black to Business podcast. And a lot of people in the program, of course, they were introduced to me. They love the podcast. Like they loved it. So we were like, okay, how do we make this even better? And so one of the young ladies that I met in there, her name is Andrea. She did share with me that I could share her name because I was like, you are like my ICA. And she's a young lady, and she reminded me so much of myself when I was starting Black to Business. And another thing that I want to mention is that the program was based out of the Bronx. Now, I live in Brooklyn, and I can count on one hand how many times before this year and last year, the fourth quarter of last year, that I had been to the Bronx. So I've been to the Bronx more times than I've been the 9 years that I've been in New York within the past couple of months. But anywho, one of the things that I learned in that program is just a lot of the issues that are happening within the Bronx when it comes to poverty, when it comes to access to resources, like it being one of the poorest areas in the U.S., but then also New York. So learned so much about the Bronx, and it reminded me of, meeting those entrepreneurs coming out of the Bronx, a lot of my own personal experience. So Andrea was from the Bronx, and she loved the Black to Business podcast. She was like, I was sharing it with everybody. And so one of the things, we recently went to an event, we had to judge a pitch competition. And I love the go-getter spirit that Andrea has, because again, she reminded me so much of myself. At 23 years old, that's when I started Black to Business. That's when I moved to New York. So one of the things that happened at the pitch competition was, afterwards, someone was coming up to us and they were saying, I work for this firm and it's a venture capital firm. And they were just going on and on about venture capital. And so we were like listening and talking and engaging with the person. And then after the conversation, Andrea comes up to me and she says, I had this definition of venture capital all wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, what did you think it meant? She said, well, I thought venture capital was the money you put into your business. And I thought, I thought, wow, she just shared that with me, something she didn't know. And I love that, we don't know everything. That's the biggest thing. We don't know everything. And then another thing is that showed up for me is that, one, I was like, oh, well, I have I didn't judge her because I'm like, I don't know a lot of stuff. But it was a great feeling to say, oh, I actually have a podcast episode all about, understanding venture capital, what it actually is. And I was able to refer her to that as a resource. And so I thought about it. And so we had this whole conversation about the fact that, one, she was a first generation entrepreneur herself, and she would come to me in a program for advice a lot. And I saw a lot of myself in her. And so I was speaking in the program, and one of the things it made me realize is there is a need here. And throughout that program, a lot of people would, we would have accountability partners and we would work together. And I've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they always ask me my story. And this is one thing, I don't share a lot of my story. So out of the program, I was really encouraged to share more of my story because people heard my story and they're like, okay, more people need to hear this. But then one of the things that it brought out for me was that when I think about business, one of the things I'm very clear on is the fact that I like to share resources or teach people what I know based on my own experience. I don't like to share things I don't really know about. So for me, one of the pivots that happened was that as a first-time entrepreneur or as a first-generation entrepreneur, we're a lot of times married to the original idea that we have for our business. And that's not to say that the why will not change, the purpose, the goal, not that it won't change. It will stay the same, rather. But the way that you do that might change. So for me, it was about impacting the Black community. But then also I had to and as time goes on, what you'll learn is that you'll get even more clear on who you serve, how you can serve them, and in what ways. So for me, it became really clear to me that there is a need here. There are people that I'm speaking to that are doing this for the first time, and they don't know necessarily the best next steps. And I remember when I first started my business, I was in that exact same place. So what it made me think of is, okay, how can you use the platform that you have to serve this need? And so that's really what inspired me to make some pivots within Black to Business on who we focused on. So creating resources for those who are in the first stages of business, who are first generation entrepreneurs. I have personal lived experience with that. So that's really what inspired me to talk about this today. And then also some of the tips that I'm going to share with you today. I think that we overcomplicate the process. So I've been doing business for 8 years. One of the things is we overcomplicate the process of business when it can be so much simpler. So these are the reasons why I wanted to talk about this today. And so now I'm going to move into some of the tips that I have on if you're experiencing this, or if you're a new and first generation entrepreneur, some of the ways that you can navigate the world of business. And this is in no particular order. And this is from my personal experience and research based on what I found. So the first things first is that you want to get clear on your why, and you want to get honest about your why. So it might be you want to work for yourself, but why? because I talk about this all the time. Entrepreneurship is a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So there are going to be some high times and there are going to be some low times. But when I tell you, listen to me, when you know why you do something, that's what gets you up every day. When you get kicked down, that's what keeps you getting up. Like, there have been so many times where I'm like, okay, this isn't working, but let me pivot because I know why I'm doing this and I know who I'm doing it for. So you really want to get honest about the reasoning why you want to start a business and why you want to serve the people that you serve. So for me, getting clear about just the fact that I didn't want to not only work for anybody else, I wanted freedom. I also wanted the fact that if I did work for someone else, going back to that point, I forgot to mention, if I did work for someone else, I wanted it to be a Black-owned business. But what I realized is that when I was doing all the things that I was taught on how you pursue getting a job, I was doing all the right things. I was doing the cover letters. I was going to start Staples and printing, resume books, presentation books. But what I found is that there weren't a lot of businesses, or there weren't even any, and I'm in New York City, there weren't many Black businesses that could hire and afford to hire. So that became an issue. Like, why are we not able to, why are we operating as solo founders? So it's getting us to a level where we're not just a solo operation. And that's the goal with Black to Business, is to get you started, get you creating revenue, but then you need to be thinking about hiring, because that's how you build wealth. That's how you build impact in the community. So getting even clearer on the why. Another thing I would say is you have to do your research. What's working in the market? What are the alternatives for your customers? And how are you going to be the one to serve their needs? So really, really taking the time to do a lot of research as a first generation entrepreneur, because one, oftentimes you are building the blueprint, but there might be a similar idea out there. They just might not do it the way that you do it. So you want to see what's working for those people, because what's going to make you stand out is your unique value. So the more research you have, the better you're able to find what makes you unique. So taking the time to do that market research, do that A/B testing, find out what alternatives there are for your customers, talk to your customers. And maybe some people might not know this, but there are people who are in your industry that might be open to speaking to you. So one of the things I've done before is I've talked to people that have similar things that they're doing in business, but they're not catering to my specific audience. And they were open to speaking to me. I have a specific audience. I'm speaking to specifically Black entrepreneurs. So there is some benefit in helping, the more niche specific. So you'll be surprised how willing people are to help. And they may be your competitor, but they might be able to help and show you, what ways things are working for them. I was in a program and there was someone who was doing something similar. They were catering more so towards Black entrepreneurs in a specific state. So they weren't really necessarily looking across the U.S. and gaining insight and value from them for what's working. So that shortened their research time. So that's what I would say. Research as a first-time entrepreneur is going to be very, very important. And you want to create that problem-solving offer. So when you're expressing that, when you have this offer, you want to express how is it solving their problems? And you want to be able to speak to those objections that they might have. So, I know you might be concerned about this, but this is how we solve that problem for you. So they're like, I thought about that, and you already have it solved for me. So that shows that you care about them. And I think the best thing as a new entrepreneur, I had my mentor tell me, use that quiet time to your advantage. So while you don't have as many customers, you can take the time to, really get personable with people and spend more time on that research. So express how it will solve their problems and then refine and focus in on it. So I think that as a first-time entrepreneur, you don't really want to focus on too many things. Like, you really want to get known for doing something really, really well. And I know we can get shiny object syndrome and say, okay, this isn't working as fast for me, so I might as well do this. What I've shared before is the mistake that I've learned is that There were things that I wanted to do within Black to Business initially, and I found, oh, this isn't working as fast as I wanted to, just to end up years later coming back to it. And I thought, what if I would have just focused on this the whole time? I could have gotten better. So you really, I know it's easy to get sidetracked and say, okay, I want to focus on this new thing, but I'm telling you, listen to my advice, get really good at doing one thing in your business. So people know us for the podcast, and that has opened up so many more opportunities for us because of the focus that we've had on making sure that we're getting even better with it. So now it's like, this is the way that we make impact with the podcast. And that came from consistently doing it over and over and refining it. Another thing is that you want to be known for something. Kind of what I said before is you want to be known for something and what's your expert edge. So recently, again, on that conference, I learned so much from that conference, and I'm like, okay, this will be helpful for the Black to Business audience. So you want to be that person that people thinks about when they think of your industry. So what comes to mind when people think of you? Like, that's something that I want you to think about. What comes to mind when people think of you? So for me, it might be podcasting. Like, people come to me for advice on podcasting. People come to me for any recommendations on Black businesses. Do you know a Black person that does this, and this? I had somebody recently asking me for a cleaning service here in New York. And I was able to get that to them because basically at this time, what I've done is like created this Excel spreadsheet for myself of people that I have heard about or have used. So you want to really think about what comes to mind when people think of you, and really, what do you want to be known for? And one of the things that they said on the conference, and I think it will be valuable for you because it was really valuable for me, is when it comes to, for example, social media, and you have a business page, think of it as your storefront. So when people come to your social media page, what is your shop showing? Is it showing that you like to walk dogs, but that you also help people start their businesses, and also you like to paint, but then also you like to travel, and then on the side you teach tennis? I don't know. It's just all these things that are far off. So when people come to you, they're like, I don't know what they do. So you really want to make it simple for people to make a decision. I know that I can come to Monique for this. I know that I can come to you, insert your name, for this. And you want to, especially when it comes to thinking about business, think of your social media as a storefront, but then also your website as a store. It is a storefront. So making it, the simpler it is, the better. You don't want to give people too many options because they're not going to make a decision. Also, on that note, I want to say it makes me think about a lot of my business friends. They get overwhelmed by social media, and it's because they're trying to do so many things. They're following all these trends, when you just get focused and narrow down what you do well and just continue to do that. And you can decide how complex you want it to be. But I think, again, we overcomplicate the process. So for me, I'm not posting everything on social media. I'm not posting too many things on social media. I don't get on social media as much because I do think if I'm going to get online, it has to be with a purpose. And that's how I look at social media. I don't go on there to compare myself to people because I get on there with a purpose. So if I'm getting on social media, either I'm getting on there to be posting about my business, or it's like, okay, I want to laugh, or I want to be inspired by something, but I'm getting on there with intentions. And I think that we have to reapproach the way that we use social media so that we aren't getting overwhelmed, because I see it all the time. So it's normal to get that way, but I think that's the way you want to think about it, is when you get on there, go on there with a game plan. That's how I always think about it. So you want to be known for something. What's your expert edge? Next thing is you want to get clear on who your audience is and create solutions for them. So get clear on your ideal customer avatar, or I've heard people talk about recently, your ideal community. So they may look different, but it's a whole group of people that are in your community. And the reason that it's important to do that is because you begin to create solutions with them in mind. If you're confused on who your customer is, you're creating content, you're creating solutions, you're creating products for everyone. And so that's going to lead to overwhelm, that's going to lead to waste, that's going to lead to expenses. So the clearer you are on who your customer is, the better you're able to cater to them. So you can speak to them directly, do customer discovery calls. Maybe you might get on the phone with them. Or you might also say, I want to create a poll on social media. I want to create a poll on my email list. And I think that all of these tips are really good when it comes to the focus areas as a first-time entrepreneur, because you don't want to be focusing on too many things as a first-time entrepreneur because you don't know anything yet. You're finding things out. So this is that discovery process so that you can make sure that your business not only survives, but it thrives. So really getting clear on who your audience is and speaking to them directly. One of the things I've spoken about before is when it came to who my audience was in Black to Business, I was speaking to people, everybody who was Black. I was like, okay, would you be interested in this? Would you be interested in that? And I was creating all these solutions. But the problem was, yes, they were Black, but they weren't interested in creating a business. So I had to get clear. Okay, we have to talk to people who are interested in creating a business. Now my focus is, an area of our business is focused on those who are new and first generation entrepreneurs. So now I have to speak more so towards those people who are new in business, those people who did not have the groundwork laid for them for starting a business. So creating content, creating products and services for those particular people. And again, sharing the mistakes that I made. So of course you won't make these same mistakes. Are you a Black man leading in business or community? Or do you know a Black man leading in business or community? If so, we would love to consider featuring you or someone you know in our annual Black Men Who Lead series, where we highlight Black men leading in business and community each June. All you have to do is fill out the nomination form located in the show notes, and if you or someone you know is chosen, they will be featured on our annual list. Now back into the episode. The next thing is you want to set and track your money goals. So money goals are so important. And this is going to determine if you're operating a hobby versus a business. And I think that the more you get focused on your money goals, the better you're able to serve those people as well, because it takes money to make impact. And when it says impact, I'm sure a part of you starting your business is you wanted to make an impact in your community. You wanted to be able to do more things for yourself or for your family or your loved ones. It takes money to do that. And the more you don't think about a money generating idea, the longer you delay that process. So get clear on what your money goals is, breaking down your costs, your profits, your revenue, and saying, okay, this is costing me this. How much do I want to make from this? And then considering your business taxes as well. How much do you want to pay yourself? What is it going to cost you to pay yourself? And then the next step is also, what's it going to cost for me to outsource this? What's it going to cost for me to hire an assistant? You want to think about those things, and breaking even is not going to cut it. I mean, you might break even in the beginning, but you want to always think money, because money, you're able to make impact on your life. You're able to outsource some of the things so that you're not doing everything. You can only do that for so long. So setting your money and tracking your money goals is so important, especially if you are a new and first time entrepreneur who is working a full-time job or working for someone else, but are looking to transition into your business full-time. The mistake I made was I was thinking, okay, I have this job. I don't really have to make a whole bunch of money in my business because I have my job and I can do certain things because I just love doing it. And that's really why I started Black to Business. One of the reasons. I love helping entrepreneurs. I love speaking about entrepreneurship. But when it came time to think about transitioning, that's not going to cut it. So you have to think about those money goals. So helping and wanting to help people are great, but you got to feed yourself. Another thing you want to think about is creating and writing down your plan. Now, this is important to note that your idea will evolve. So as you're doing more customer discovery, as you're learning more, as you're growing, your idea will evolve, and that's okay. that is another reason why, as a first-time entrepreneur, I think it's important to talk about the importance of a business canvas versus a business plan. So a business plan is, when you think about a business plan, it's like this detailed document, 20, 10, 15 pages long, so complex, and it explains, basically how a business will become profitable, and it gets overwhelming for a lot of people. And I think that it's great if you're looking to get funding, but if you're just looking to do your business, you're not looking for funding right now, I think a business canvas is the best step. And that's basically a 1-page explaining how your organization is going to work with your main idea. And it's more so of a visual representation. So it might show how a business is going to create or capture value, and really it's made to be tested. So I recommend, if you're in the first year of business, I say focus on your business canvas as opposed to your business plan. Now, if you're looking for funding, you want to certainly look into a business plan. But I've seen multi-million-dollar business owners talk about the fact that they don't have a business plan. But I think you actually definitely need something in writing. So creating a plan is important. Now, what that plan looks like is another story. So you might want to start with a business canvas, but do not have a plan in writing. So a lot of people get overwhelmed about the business plan. I remember when I first started Black to Business, in my first few years, I did have a business plan. But when I tell you I was learning so much, things were changing so much, that I hardly ever looked at it. I mean, now we have a business plan, but I eventually learned about a business canvas, and I was like, this could have solved a lot of my problems. So what I recommend doing is having a business canvas, because the first year is really based on testing. So you're testing, you're getting more clear on who your audience is, what are your revenue channels, how are you going to make money? And then as you know more, you're able to give more details. So after that, you want to create a business plan. And I say look at it every quarter, every 6 months, going back and changing and updating it. But I cannot stress enough the importance of having a plan, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So get a business plan or a business canvas. And then I'm also going to talk about the fact that that's something that we do now at Black to Business. So be sure to visit blacktobusiness.com to see how we can help you do that. And then the other thing is that you want to develop a business mindset. So this is important because I think that you have to determine, I talked about this earlier, are you operating a hobby or are you operating a business? You got to think about your long-term goals. I know it's so popular right now to say, or trendy to say, I have a business, I'm an entrepreneur. But are you really? Like for me, I was around here saying I'm a business owner, I'm doing all this, and come to find out I was operating a whole hobby. So let's get clear on what the differences is. So looking up the definition, so a hobby is an activity that a person pursues because they enjoy it and with no intention of making a profit. People operate a business with the intention of making a profit. So when I first started Black to Business, it really was a hobby because I just started, with interviewing people, and I wasn't really thinking about making money. I was doing a job, but I was out here saying I have my own thing. So that's all I knew, is that this must be a business. Girl, that's a whole hobby. So you have to develop that business mindset. If a business is what you want, you have to develop that business mindset. So that goes back to having those money goals, because a business is you're operating with the intention of making a profit. So make sure that you develop that business mindset. Also, another thing that's going to be important with a business mindset is being intentional with how you plan your day, especially if you're operating a business and then you're also working a full-time job. Like you have to operate like an employee and then also CEO after hours, or if it's before hours for you. But you cannot play around with your time. So developing a business mindset is key, and learning a lot of the skills that you need for your business. Learning it on somebody else's dime is also an important piece. So if you're working in a full-time job, I say learn as much as you can from that full-time job. If they have additional courses that you can take, on their intranet. Like, go on there and take those courses. I've done that before too, so that you can continue to pour into yourself. And the next important thing that you want to think about as a first time and first generation entrepreneur is you want to make your business official. Like, this is a part of also developing a business mindset. So you want to incorporate your business, whether it be an LLC, corporation, because this is what's going to separate you and your business. These are the things that allows your business to be its own entity. Make business decisions through your business, and it also allows you to be separate from your business. And this is important for so many reasons, because in business, you hear people say it's business, it's not personal. And that is why it's important. Once you separate the two, you realize that some of the decisions they're not about you personally, they're about your business. So you have to make sure that you get your business to a certain point of health and success. But also understanding that when things get bad, it's not because of you personally. It's like it isn't always going to be perfect in business. So you're separating the two. But you want to make your business official because it not only shows that you're serious about your business, but it also shows other people that you're not operating a hobby, you're operating a business. This is separate from who you are. So it also goes into when you create your business bank account, that becomes separate from your personal account. So you can see, how much is my business making? Not how much am I making in addition to what my 9-to-5 is bringing in. No, how much is my business doing? And when you get to see those numbers, like, okay, I got to step it up. I got to figure out a way to make this product better. I got to figure out a way to make this revenue stream even better. So making your business official is important for so many other reasons. And one of my last points that I'll mention is that you want to build a network. Your network is truly your net worth. So I don't know if you're listening and you may have a similar background to me, and I'll share this story. I'm from a small town, so I had no network. When I went to DC, I knew no one. When I moved to New York, after DC, I knew no one. I had no business network. But one of the things I was always serious about is I understood the fact that you're doing this for the first time. Nobody is showing you how to do it. Your reputation is going to be everything. So how you show up is going to be everything. So my friends, they'll tell you when it comes to business, I am very professional. I separate the two. Like, I might be emailing you, I might be texting you 1 minute, but when it comes to business, I'm emailing you as if you're like, who is this person? Because I'm very serious about how I show up in my business, because I remember I did not have any network. So all people could have known me from what I told them in my work ethic. So that's always been really important to me. So for me, growing up in a rural town, you might not have the biggest network locally, but really start to look into online communities. And if you can afford to do so, traveling when necessary to go to certain conferences. Maybe it's something that you get to partake in every year or every quarter. I don't necessarily think that you have to be in a major city to get the benefits of operating a business. I think that there's a lot of value in operating businesses in smaller towns. That's something that we're going to talk about on the podcast in the future, but there's real value also in operating in smaller towns. The issue is the lack of resources, and that might mean that you might have to go outside of those communities to get those resources. But start to put yourself out there. Maybe you might not be able to go these places every weekend, but planning for it once a year, twice a year, and just nurturing those relationships throughout the year is really important. So building your network is so key. And another thing I'll say about that is you want to put in the effort. So for me, when it came to building my network, I wouldn't say I'm the most social person, but I do what I have to do. And I do that because you have to think about you're building something. So a lot of times people don't know you, you're introduced. Most times when people have this network, they're introduced, hey, do you know so-and-so? And so you're introduced to somebody. But what happens if you don't have a network? Who's going to introduce you? So you have to put in a lot of that effort. So that comes up in showing, I'm operating a business, not a hobby, how I show up. But then also I'm putting in that effort to show who I am. So it might require a little more effort on your end if you don't have a network, and that's okay. But just think about, that person, once you build that relationship, those people will be able to introduce you to someone else. And then also you'll eventually be the person, I trust when Monique introduces me to that person because she has this reputation of showing up as this. So building your network is going to be so important. And those are the tips that I have for operating a business as a new and a first generation entrepreneurs. Some of the things that people don't always think about, but I think are really important. Again, they were in no particular order, but there are things that you definitely should think about. So I'm going to go over them just to give a recap. So you have to really get clear on your why, do your research, create your problem-solving offer, and you want to be known for something like what's your expert edge and what comes to mind. Ask yourself the question, what comes to mind when people think of me? And then you want to get clear on your audience and create solutions for them. So get super focused and obsessive on creating solutions for those who you wish to serve. And then you want to set and track your money goals, because you cannot make an impact without money. It takes money. You might not have to initially invest a lot of money, but you know how they say I can make $1 out of 15 cents. Like eventually that's going to snowball into more money, more opportunities, more ways for you to make impact, more ways for you to grow in your business. So have a financial plan in place. And then you want to create and write down your plan. So create a business plan if you're at that stage. If you're not at the stage yet where you need a business plan, create a business canvas. And again, these are things that Black to Business can help you with. Go to blacktobusiness.com in our business center and we will help you and we will create this for you so you don't have to worry about it. Next, you want to develop a business mindset and make sure that your business is official and build a network. And lastly, I want to say, before I dive into the ways that Black to Business can help you, is get into the habit of outsourcing, getting into the habit of understanding that you don't have to know everything and you don't also have to do everything. So that brings me to my next point of some of the ways that Black to Business can help you. We just opened our business center, which includes ways to help people form their business with business formation. So if you're looking to form an LLC or a corporation, these are things that we can handle for you. And the reason that we do this is because we want to encourage you to focus on your business and let us handle that paperwork for you. I cannot stress enough that we live in an information overload society. And sometimes when you have so much information, you don't know where to start next. You don't know what's the next best step. So anytime you're looking to take money in your business, you need to create an entity for your business. So let us do that for you. Again, you can go to blacktobusiness.com/business center and you'll see a list of our services. We also have business plan writing services where you will fill out a quick form and we will create a business plan for you. Unlimited revisions based on which plan you choose. We will create that business plan for you as well as your business canvas. You can contact us if you are looking to create a business canvas, not necessarily a business plan. So these are the things we're working on. Also, if you need to make changes in your business, amend your business, that's something that we handle. File your DBA, that's something that we can handle. And we do all of these things in all 50 states. And then also, if you're looking to close your business, that is something that we can help you with as well. So if you are someone that you know are looking to or need any of these services, please visit our website. There have been so many updates there with our business center. I really encourage you to get your business set up in a proper way. And I also really encourage you to keep going because it's not going to be perfect, but one of the things I do want to stress is that you're likely creating the blueprint. So you won't have all the answers, and that's okay. But you have to be a part of communities and around like-minded people so that you can get the answers. The biggest thing that I think, and I struggled with this also in the beginning, is trying to figure everything out myself and operating in a silo, like operating as a loner. When the moment I started to get around other like-minded people, they encouraged me, they motivated me, they helped me, point me in the right direction in those areas that I was struggling in. And if you're in an area where you don't have a big community, really put yourself out there and go online. So I hope that this has been valuable for you. If you love this episode, please let me know on Instagram, follow us at Black to Business. And then also in the show notes, you'll see that we have a Q&A section. So if you have any questions, I'm going to be doing more solo episodes throughout the year. So if I have a question, if I see a question that I can answer or one of our upcoming guests can answer, please be sure to put that in that question box. You can just click the link in our show notes and we'll make sure that it's answered on an upcoming episode so you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for listening, and I can't wait to chat with you again next week. And I want to encourage you, do not give up.